This facility is our egg wash facility. This site over here is called the breeder farm. All our breeding stock is kept over here. It's basically isolated from the rest of the farm, so we don't run into any quarantine issues. So it's essentially 2 miles away to any other birds from our property. This year we have about 32,000 laying hens here. These birds will produce about 2.2 million eggs this season from December to September 1st. And at peak, which is usually about the second weekend in May, we'll get 22,000 eggs a day. Currently, we're collecting about 6,000 eggs a day. So the egg laying season, again, it's seasonal. It goes from essentially January to September 1st. So essentially, because we have 13 different breeds that we track, we had to develop a code system to keep the different groups separated. So if we come over to this far side here, I'll kind of explain that to you. We have 3 pens. They're lettered ABC. Within each pen, there's compartments where we can separate groups. And in those groups, we're numbered. So we have an A1, A2, we have a B1, B2. So we can isolate it down to an individual compartment, which holds about 300 hens. We do a 1 to 10 ratio roosters to hen on the outside colony breed. So as you can see laid in front of you, we have color coded. Each color code is designated a group. So there's a visual reminder for the egg collectors when they bring them up here to the washers that group B7 is red flats, group B6 is orange flats, extra large is white and black flats. And again, it's to help separate things through here. So essentially, the dirty eggs come in through these doors. They're stacked here by groups, and then the washers take over. We use a 2-person washing on a cool egg wash machine. The dirty eggs are put on this side. As she's putting them on, she will cull out any obvious bad. So she pulls out any obvious, they'll go through the machine. The machine has rollers that spin the eggs as they go through the machine. It's high temperature, 110 degrees Fahrenheit water with alkaline non-foaming egg detergent. Inside the machine there's a set of horizontal and vertical brushes that brush the eggs as they're spun going through. After they pass through the wash cycle, there's a disinfectant cycle that sprays 500 parts per million quatamone on the eggs, and that is to protect the eggs. By washing the eggs, you remove the cuticle on the egg, which is its natural defense. So we put quatamone back on it to protect the egg in storage from contamination. They then pass through a blower to help dry them. They come to the end of the machine, and the person at the end of the machine, again, does a pull on it, pulls out anything oversized, undersized, cracked, chipped, any non-viable eggs, and then he'll stack them in the trays. They're 46-count trays. He'll orientate them point down to allow the larger part of the air sac to be able to breathe better. So I have an example of cull eggs here. You can just see some of what we pulled out. We have a chipped egg, cracked eggs, undersized egg. Right now these eggs were collected outside, and with the temperature it is, we do experience a higher cull rate from the eggs freezing. Pretty much the eggs overnight, anything laid overnight after we leave, gets frozen and cracked until it warms up. So chipped, some of them are more obvious than others. It takes a trained eye to identify it. So after the eggs go through the wash cycle, they're stacked into the same designation cases that were on the baskets. They are then put into the walk-in egg cooler for storage. The walk-in cooler is between 58 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit and 70% humidity, which is a critical thing. Eggs, a high percentage water, you want to maintain a high humidity storage versus putting it into a regular refrigerator, because that will affect your hatchability at the end. We do chlorine test level and quatamone test levels on the machine as we're going to maintain it. It's one of those things with chlorine levels. It's been debated over the industry a long time, and what's the necessary amount of chlorine. We find 100 to 200 parts per million is sufficient enough to do it, as long as we're changing the water at a frequent level. Quatamone, same thing, we run at about 400 to 500 parts per million. Obviously running it heavier doesn't hurt anything, other than you're using more product. Running it less, you're giving less protection to the eggs while they're in storage. So that's kind of where we fell in. And what we did is we did egg roll tests on media plates and incubated the plates at different levels to guarantee that we were getting the eggs clean, and establish that as our protocol. So we can step in here. This is our walk-in cooler. So these eggs here is yesterday's production. And like I said, we're getting about 6,000 eggs a day. One of the things that we've done since I've been here is, when I originally started, we used cardboard boxes and cardboard flats. And what we found is the eggs don't dry off as well, and they don't breathe while they're in cardboard box if they're stored for any length of time. So again, we switched over to cool plastic crates, and you can see, because they're slotted and the trays are slotted, the eggs are set on pegs, that it allows air circulation while they're storage, allows them to dry, get that any excess of moisture off of them, and it allows them to breathe while they're in storage. Like I said before, we keep them at about 58 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit and 70% humidity. They're basically stored here about 12 hours from the end of the day to the next day. The hatchery crew will come down in the morning. They will open the sliding door, take out the previous day's production, and take that to the hatchery. And again, that's to help with biosecurity. They only have to enter through the garage door. They don't have to track in. Everything at this part of the egg wash facility should be cleaned and sanitized. So it's again just steps we try to take to isolate transferring anything from one department to another. And it's a separate crew that comes down here to do that. The eggs here, generally we try to only store for 24 hours, and we take them to the hatchery for them to sort out right away. And that's more as a production cycle, so we know how many eggs we have for the set to meet our customers' orders, because we have such a variety of breeds. Ben will talk a little bit more at the hatchery. Basically, you can store eggs for 7 days and set them and not have much loss in fertility and hatchability. At 14 days, again, you'll have a little bit, probably 5 to 10% loss than what you would experience if you had fresh eggs. And after 21 days, you'll experience a pretty significant loss. Now Ben will talk about that a little bit more. What we do at the hatchery is we'll date the eggs as they come into the hatchery, again, to try to track, first in, first out. Always use, not necessarily the freshest, but we're using the oldest eggs, so we don't have eggs that are sitting there for a long period of time and losing potential hatchability. The other thing he does do too is older eggs get set longer than fresh eggs, because they're going to need a little bit more time to be stimulated. The other reason, when you store eggs at 58 degrees, you're basically retarding the development of the embryo at 58 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So when you set multiple age eggs, whether they're 7 days old, 10 days old, or 15 days old, they all start development at the same time, and your hatch comes off at the same time. If you take eggs, collect them, wash them and put them straight into the hatchery and you don't do any storage, your hatching machine is you're going to hatch at all different times because the eggs are going to have started development at different days. So by storing them, it's a tool that allows us to determine when the eggs are going to hatch, to meet the orders, and it's a lot about logistics, about having the eggs hatch when you want them to get them out to your customers.